talk about imagination and spiritual vision. If you recall, the first Sunday of this month, I talked about God is my source. God is our source. Always remembering that stillness, presence within us, that divine core, that divine spark that is at the very essence of who we are, that's where all good flows. We must always remember that and live from that place. I talked about the power of possibility. Here's where our imagination can kick in and we begin to see how things could be different from how they are now. We take that here as a divine inspiration and we follow that path with action to see how it unfolds. I talked about the harmonizing power of imagination. If you recall, there's kind of phases in setting and achieving any goal, or what I call spiritual vision. The first one is that inspiration that arises, that usually there's a lot of energy and you can see it done. It's a very kind of, we would call it a positive or a joyful feeling. It's something we like. And then often, especially if there's power behind it, what comes something that's not as pleasant called resistance. It's as if the universe challenges us, saying, are you really sure that you want to do or be or have that thing? Because in the first phase, it was just so clear you could see it done. And then you say, yes, I'm going to do this. And you start confer with the Spirit within and take steps. Then all of a sudden, something hits you. It might be some monetary issue. It might be a part of yourself that is now speaking up saying, who do you think you are to do this thing? You know what I'm talking about. But when we hit that resistance, where we go with that is not turn it into a contest of fighting and which side wins, but recognize that resistance is asking us a question. What is looking to emerge here? What have I not yet perceived or seen? And that power becomes a harmonizing power. And once again, everything begins to work together. It's like a bump that you have to get over. And if you can do that, then the way is clear from there forward. Today I want to talk about imagination and spiritual vision. I had my affirmation somewhere. Let's read the affirmation. Now today's, it's opposite day. We usually read the affirmation at the end. I'm going to read it at the beginning this time. So let's read that together. With faith and imagination, I remain open to the vision unfolding within me. Yes. The world, it seems, wants answers. But the Spirit operates through questions. You know, when we're growing up, in school especially, the whole purpose of it is to have the right answer, to learn what we're supposed to learn so that we can get the answers right on the test and pass it. And that is in many ways how the manifest world works. And we get that. And we choose not to call that a problem, but we choose to look deeper and see that the Spirit, the realm of the Spirit, this silence, this divine spark that I call within, what the master teacher called the kingdom of God, is an upside down kingdom compared to the manifest world. Over and over, the lessons are basically saying, you see how this works in the world? Turn it upside down. That's how the Spirit works. And so in the realm of the Spirit operates in questions, not answers. Why, as I've heard it said, why ruin a perfectly good question with an answer? Because as soon as I answer a question, my mind is closed. I already know. I'm not taking in any more information, not interested in any other points of view. I already know my mind is closed. Well, if we expect to grow in the Spirit, we better do so with an open mind and an open heart. Not a closed mind, not a closed heart. The master teacher could have begun by telling his first disciples everything they needed to know. Instead, his first words in the Gospel of John were, what are you looking for? That is a question. What are you looking for? Not, here's how all this works. Now get in line. There'll be a test. see if you can do it right, but what are you looking for? Because everything begins with that question within. What is your heart calling for? What are you looking for? And I mean you with a capital Y, that spiritual essence in you that exists underneath the level of thought. That brings with it a peace that passes understanding because it has nothing to do with our thinker. What do you want? Spiritual growth begins with curiosity. And there are no silly questions. I want to stress this. That's another thing, in my experience at least, I feel like I've had to unlearn. When I was in school, you better be careful what questions you asked. Because you could ask a, quote, stupid question. And I don't want to do that. My strategy around that was if I never say anything, I can't ask a stupid question. So I'm going to sit here with my mouth shut. That was my whole approach to life. And look at me now. You can't hardly get me to stop talking. Hey, I'm making up for many decades of hiding in the corner. Work with me on this. So here's a seemingly silly question. Why does time only move forward? Doesn't that sound like a question you'd ask in a college dorm late at night? With a certain smell in the air, empty pizza box. But that is the question that propelled Stephen Hawking's work, A Brief History of Time. What about this one? What would it be like to ride a beam of light? There's another dorm question. Yet that question propelled Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. Those inquiries began with a question. This is hard science, too. This is not squishy science, like sociology. This is physics. Or psychology. I heard once psychology has a physics envy. It wishes it was the hard science that you could prove on a piece of paper. So when we ask questions, I invite you to become aware of the type of questions you're asking. Don't ask, why me? Isn't that one of our favorite human questions? Why me? Anything from somebody pulled out in front of me on the road to, I broke my leg or I lost my job or anything that befalls us. Why me? Don't ask that. How do I fix this? Now that seems like a wise question to ask. I'll talk in a minute why you might want to hold back on that one too. How do I get what I want? Now, I will give a little credit to that question because that question serves a purpose to begin your inquiry within. But what I can tell you is after some time of following the guidance of the Spirit, we abandon that question in favor of deeper, more open questions. So that one's fine too. That's what I was asking when I first got onto this path. So ask instead, what is emerging here? Can you feel the openness in that? What is emerging here? Can I become aware of it? What am I being invited to learn? That is a powerful question for growth. What am I being invited to learn? Who am I being called to become? When we talk about goal setting, this impetus, if you want to do or be or have something, we have a spiritual practice or a series of practices to allow that to unfold. And one of them is, what am I being called to become? What possibility have I not yet considered? You hear how open these questions are. There's great power in these questions, and we don't rush to an answer. You could live an entire life leaving these kinds of questions open the whole time, knowing that we're being guided forward by that divine presence within us each step of the way. I remember when I was a kid, I lived in central Pennsylvania for a few years. I'm thinking I was 6, 7 years old maybe. And I remember I can see this image now standing in the driveway at our home, looking up at the sky. So picture literally, I was shorter. And it was cold, it was winter. And I loved the snow. And I thought, how can you tell if it's going to snow or not? I think because I wanted it to snow. And I asked my dad, how can you tell if it's going to snow? And he said something about the, conditions and the clouds and the overcast and the temperature and all that. It's very solid, true answer. But I felt like I was, even at that age, longing for some deeper insight, if you will, into the nature of reality, perhaps. How do you know if it's going to snow? Years later, fast forward, I asked my dad this. I think maybe I was a couple years into my college career. How do you know if you're in love? How do you like that one? Well, the truest answer I've ever encountered is, you'll know. And I still hold by that. I think that is true. Because that is an experience and no one can give you a checklist. Now you might describe, well, people have these kinds of experiences, but you can have those kinds of experiences like on a sailboat in a storm. It's like your heart's racing, you're wondering, is this it? But the real answer is that you will know. Why? Because you are love. You are made of love. Love is the very core of who we all are. We know us when we find us. I've been asked by people in more traditional Christian paths who are concerned perhaps when they understand the way that we approach things. They say, well, how do you know it's God? Like, you better be careful, because you could be taking advice from somebody else and you just think it's God. How do you know it's God? And I think, how can you not know your maker? That's like asking, how do you know if you love your kids? Give me a break. That's not a question that I can answer. It doesn't even need to be asked. Trust me, you know. You know. Can you prove to me? Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, well, you're going down the wrong road there. How do you know it's God? You can feel it. Well, what if you make a mistake? Good. That's your path forward. I don't know any other way forward in this life but to make mistakes. That's how it works. A mistake, by the way, is something as a mental creation. Like, oh, I should have done this, but I did that. It's an assessment. I invite you to let it go. Have an experience, learn from that experience, and move forward from there. That's how the path of the Spirit works. The truth is that the path forward emerges when we are willing to stay with the question long enough. And yes, it is uncomfortable. That's why the world wants answers. Because I want to stop the discomfort. If you just tell me how this works, then I can relax. I can feel okay. Sitting in an open question, not a comfortable place to be. But that's where the growth is. I want you to know that vision, true spiritual vision, is revealed. It's not manufactured. It's not created. It is revealed. And it's revealed by sitting in the open question long enough. The future unfolds via participation, our participation. Now, there is a danger here, I'm going to say, about the power of imagination. Not every vision becomes reality. Imagination by itself can kind of be like quicksand. We can get lost in it. It has the potential to allow us to drift into fantasy and get stuck there forever. Never taking action, never putting feet to our prayers. So that would be what I would call an unskillful use of imagination. Here's the good news. There's another power on the wall. Where is it? Will. The power of will. Train will. Point your will at your imagination. The power of will is the ability to choose and to lead and to decide, to make decisions. It leads to action. This is how vision begins to take form. So when you allow your imagination and will to work together, now you're putting action to your visions. Now you're moving forward with your visions and not just sitting in them forever as in quicksand. The writer Alan Moore said, "Imagination is the most priceless gold that you could ever possibly mine, but don't get caught in a cave-in in the pit." It's a good way to put it. Bring your power of decision-making to play. So I'm going to talk about the kitchen. We laugh because if you've been here for the last several weeks, I always get to this point. You'd be disappointed if I didn't, wouldn't you? So we're living in an open question right now. Okay, we are putting into practice this spiritual vision, and we're doing it with a specific outcome in mind, which is a renovated kitchen. Why? Because the kitchen is the heart of this community. We've kind of collectively realized that. And if you stick around, if you're new here, if you stick around after the service, you'll see why. There's almost more going on back there than there is in here. There is so much love and activity and good food. Thanks to our hospitality team led by the unstoppable Miss Joan. Who I have referred to as Joan the Energizer Bunny Boyle. She's seemingly endless energy and a huge love. Anyway, stick around and you'll see. The kitchen's the heart of this community. We have asked more broadly, what is ours to do? Why are we here? Why does this community exist? Is it so we can each kind of find our way forward and then call it a day from there? I think we're called to share what we know. I think we're called to let our light shine in the world. Why? Because other people will see it if we allow it to shine. And I know that in seeing it in us, they will begin to see it in themselves. That's what this work is about. So we want to renovate our kitchen. It's the heart of this community, and we'll expand from there. Who knows where all this is going? We'll decide together as we go. But we're putting this process of spiritual vision into practice. We've been affirming, and we did today, that all the funds for the kitchen arrive by July 1st. That'd be Wednesday. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know every possibility that lies ahead. But that is exactly why we keep asking better questions, more skillful questions, instead of demanding immediate answers. This is what spiritual vision looks like. What is going to happen? Is there something greater calling to us? What is ours to do at this point? Now I'll share, we've got over half of the money already, which is wonderful and amazing. Let's give it a hand for that. Yet we have less than the full amount, and we have affirmed that we will have the full amount. Now, when I was taught this manner of spiritual goal setting, I was taught to ask always within, what is mine to do? What is my next step? What is mine to do? And sometimes, if you've been doing this at all, you have had this experience, you kind of turn within, you get quiet, you ask the question, you stay open, and you get nothing. And you think, I'm doing it wrong. Well, you're not doing it wrong. Because if you get nothing, that may well mean do nothing. Because a lot of the time, nothing is exactly the right thing to do. Talk about the power of silence in music. If all you did was play as many notes as you could, as fast as you could, well, you might be the heavy metal band, the speed metal band. Or it's been said that bluegrass is the speed metal of roots music. But we leave space for things to breathe. The space is essential in art. There is the colors and the shapes you're putting, and then what you're not putting. Open space. Critical piece of it. So if you turn within in prayer and feel like, well, I'm getting nothing, perhaps nothing is the right thing to do. Try it and see. Don't conclude you're doing something wrong. You might be doing everything exactly right. Things take time to unfold. What are we being called to here, we might ask? These are all questions instead of, where's that money? What's the problem? You can hear the difference? So we're living this process right now. And please don't look at me like I know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I do not know what's going to happen, but I know how we walk the path of the Spirit. And we will find out what is ours to do. And I have no doubt we will end at a place that our vision has shown us. And that's all we need to do right now. The bottom line is this. I'm going to close with this. We do not need all the answers. I'm going to say that again. We do not need all the answers. We need the courage to remain open and to live in the question.